Hi everyone, it's Leslie Oman here from Hungry Healthy Crafts, and today I'm going to show you a video walkthrough on how I made this card which says sending warm wishes, and it's got this really cute little chipmunk critter on there. I started out this card, I had an idea when I looked at the stamp set, so I sketched it out first of all, and I was really inspired by the stamp set that I got. This is called Joy to the Woods or something like that from Fawn, and I really like the birch trees, but it's the little critter here that I wanted to put on the card as well as the tree trunk. Now, because that was my inspiration, I decided to start with that. So I'm stamping the tree trunk, and I'm using some tuxedo black ink from Memento, from Archivals, because I want the ink to be really secure, because I'm going to be using some colored pencils to color this little guy in. Now, I'm really sorry, I don't actually know what type of coloring pencils these are. I've had them for many years, but I am giving them a little squiggle, and I'm using the blending solution from Spectrum Noir as well as a paper stump here, just to blend out the color, and that seems to work really well. I'm hoping that Santa will bring me some more coloring pencils this Christmas, so I can know exactly what pencils I'm using. I've kept similar colours for the tree trunk, but I've added a few redder tones, more of a red brown, just to bring a different colour palette into the design. Now, this is actually the first stamp set that I purchased coordinating dies. I was a bit dubious at first, but I'm really pleased that I actually bought them. They're so cute. There's so many dies in the set, and they cut out the little stamped images so perfectly. Even my 3-year-old daughter has been playing with them. I think they're really cool. So I've loaded up my Cuttlebug here, and I've put both dies on my critters so I can get them all cut out together. And I've also got here a piece of craft cardstock with another die. Now, this is from the small stitched rectangles die set, and it's the largest rectangle that's in the set, and I'm cutting that out of some craft cardstock, and that's going to be the front panel on my card. So I really like the stitching effect on this. It gives it a really nice texture to the finished card. And there's my little stamped images. Let's take a look. I just love the way the die cuts the border so perfectly around about the stamped image. And I've used some washi tape to hold it down in place when I was running it through the machine. It tends to not move as much. Now, I want to create a circle aperture or hole in the front of the card, and I'm using some Spellbinders circle dies here for this, and I've just gone right ahead and run that through the Cuttlebug, and I'm going to use the exact same die to cut out some other circles in white cardstock. So I'm going to cut two pieces or two circles from white cardstock, just the same plain white cardstock that I use for the base of my top folding note card that I'll mount everything onto. And I'm going to be using these circles to create and build a little scene that will go in the hole of that craft cardstock. Now, to create the scene, I'm going to be using some more dies, and these I think are called stitched borders, and they're paper smooches, from Paper Smooches, and I'm going to try to get two little landscapes, two little mounds of snow from the one circle. So I'll pop that just here and use one of the other more curvy, just one curve like a mountain die on the side here, and once again use a little tiny bit of washi tape to hold it in place, and we'll run that through the machine again. Now, these particular dies, they don't actually cut the card, they just leave us a stitched impression, which is very useful in some instances, but it's a little bit annoying. I wish I had some of the other ones that did cut it through. But I'm just using my craft knife here to run along this side of the die. Now I have to be a bit careful because where the dies were attached to one another, there are little metal jaggy bits, and it can actually dull the blade of your knife. I don't really want to try to cut through it with my knife. But if I score a line, then I can just use my scissors to snip right along exactly where the edge of that die was. So now I have my two little snowy mounds, and the other circle that I have, I'm going to use that to be the background. Now here's where I want to reassemble the cards so far, so I can make a decision if I want to carry on through with my original plan, or maybe if I need to make some other creative changes. So I have my circle embedded in this craft cardstock. I've got two little snowy mounds, and my idea is that the little tree trunk will go there and the chipmunk will sit on top, a bit like this. Now I want to give some texture to this front panel. That was always the idea. So I'm using a wood grain embossing folder and really sandwich that in there and run it through the Cuttlebug again. And with the wood grain effect, that will carry through the theme, especially when you have a little wooden log on the front of my card as well. Now I want to focus on the little scene within the circle, and I'm adding a little bit of colour to these snow mounds, and that's broken china distress ink. That's just so it can stand apart from the background and one hill from the other. And I know that I want to stamp a greeting onto the back panel, that for this back circle. Now I've picked out two stamp sets here, one from Hero Arts and another one from Personal Impressions, and I'm going to actually mix and match the stamps. From one of the Personal Impression stamp sets, I've got a really nice font that says Sending You, and it's quite small, but I'm going to use my Versamark ink to stamp that greeting onto the back panel, and then sprinkle some white embossing powder over the top, and I will hit that with the heat gun so that I have that heat embossed in white. Now I've got that done, you can't really see it on camera, but I'm going to add the other greeting just below it, but I want to make sure I'm not putting it too low or too close to that snowy mound. So I've taped that that other piece back down in place temporarily. Now I was originally going to say Sending You Love, but I changed my mind and decided to go for this one at the top that said Sending Warm Wishes. Now I've already got Sending You stamped on the background already, so I'm going to take the stamp that says Sending Warm Wishes, and I'm going to cut it apart. Now this is actually the first time I've ever done this, and a lot of people talk about it, and there seems to be quite a backlash of people who think, oh gosh, that's just crazy, but I was pleasantly surprised. So one quick snip with my scissors and I've got the phrase Warm Wishes. So let's stamp that again with the Versamark. And heat emboss it with the white embossing powder. Now I've got the greeting in the background is stamped and embossed with white embossing powder. I'm actually going to bring some colour into that background. I can't find my craft sheet at the moment, so I'm just using a notepad that I have on my desk, And I'm taking some distressing. So I've got chipped sapphire here first and foremost. And starting off the page, I'm in circular motions, bringing the ink onto my project. And I also have some faded jeans colour as well that I'll also add on top of that chipped sapphire, just to build up a bit of a navy dark night sky type of impression for the background. And the more ink I put on here, the more the embossed greeting just pops out. If I hold it up here, you'll be able to see. Now I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of pizzazz to the snowy mounds at the bottom. So I'm taking a blending foam with some of the Distress Ink embossing ink pad, and I'm just really gently putting some of the ink onto the back panels. And I'm going to use some holographic embossing powder to add some sparkle. But first I want to add these little footprints or paw prints, because I thought they looked really cute and they would look really, really lovely as little footsteps leading up to the log. So I'm going to add them first of all. And then take some of that embossing ink for this front panel. I don't want the holographic embossing powder to overpower. That's why I'm not rubbing the ink pad directly onto it. I thought this would be this would give a bit more of a subtle approach. So now that I have embossed those front panels, I'm ready to assemble the card. So I'm going to stick that larger piece on first of all. Then that little slim piece. Just about here. And I've also stuck on my little log and the little chipmunk, and I used some Ranger multi matte medium for that. And I'm just positioning this onto a top folding note card to try and get the positioning just right. I want this to be stuck really well, so I'm going to use some double-sided sticky tape for this. And I've centered the image so that there is equal distance in each side. The front panel I want to be raised up, and unfortunately I've run out of continuous foam tape, so I had to use the little squares, and I'm just sticking that right on the top here. Now my note card's longer than that stitched rectangle, so I'm just going to trim off the bottom with a craft knife. Nearly done, but I thought that it would be really nice to add a little pop of colour. So to finish off the card, I have die cut some little red hearts. These are tiny little hearts, and I'm putting them in place with my Quick Sticks tool and a little dab of that Ranger Multi Matte Medium. I wanted the hearts to stand out really, really nicely, so I'm adding a little bit of glossy accents, squeezing a little bit out and moving it around, so those will dry nice and shiny. And that's the finished card. Thank you for joining me today, and don't forget to hit the like button or subscribe. Thank you.